This is Hello World tutorial number 17. Within this tutorial we're going to talk about creating virtual fields within the object model, and we're also going to look into model field types password and the usage of the password box component, and finally the usage of the replace with web part function, the system function. And we're also going to be creating the user model, a login form, a registration form, and logging in the user. Let's go into the file manager first, and we're going to go into the application. Let's create a commit set like usual. Go ahead and edit the commit set. And let's add a model, and this is the model for the user. We're going to add field type first name, last name, email, which will be field type of email, to provide some basic validation, and then finally the password field name, which will be the field type password, which will store the password in encrypted format. So once stored, you can only compare the password and you cannot change the password or cannot see the password. You can change it, but you cannot see it once set. And finally, search by email for indexing purposes. Let's go ahead and save that. Now we can go ahead and take a look at the user, and you'll see all the different properties. We're going to go ahead and add a virtual field. A virtual field doesn't get saved to the database, but can be returned anywhere in the application. And in this case, we're going to create a virtual field by the name of full name. And this will combine the first and last names based on if both exist, one exists, or none. Now the object type is the type of return value for this virtual field. In this case, it's going to be a string. We can pass the get, or we have to create a get tag, which will contain the script, and then finally the actual script. You can access any of the other fields that exist in the model when in the script. Let's go ahead and add this after the password. Okay, let's save those changes and save these changes. Now we're going to commit the commit set and update the application as needed so that we can update the database with the new model information. This is an error you may encounter. It's rare in the latest versions, but the reason you encounter the error is because you did not build a release version, and once we build the release we can easily update it, and you'll notice it has been updated to the latest version 24. Let's now go into the test file and again create a commit set. we're going to go into the web file and we're going to add a registration form. Now this is a form that the user can fill out to create an account with the system. Add the HTML renders and add the default render as well. Let's go into the default render and add the fields, and we're going to do that by using the table form with HR type as opposed to EV type. The table form will allow you to enter in labels and data in a structured format. In this case, we add multiple items. The first item has a label caption of first name, and the data, which is going to be of text box type, is going to be now added. First name. Now let's go ahead and repeat this for the variety of fields that we want to enter, which include last name, email, password, and confirm password. The last two types, we're going to add password EV components as opposed to the standard text box. The password components will present an input box of password type with hidden characters. So we've gone ahead and added all of that. Now let's go ahead and add some buttons for the register and cancel. Each of the buttons has the register button with an on-click event utilizing EV_click, so that event will be triggered once the button is clicked. Go down and we can add the cancel button now. We'll insert it after that register. And on cancel, we're going to use the back web part on EV. And the back web part will simply move back the current web part that you're viewing, in this case the register form. Let's go ahead and add some code for the registration. And we're first going to add some validation code. And we use the tag variable validation to validate the form items. Now the label property will be utilized to pass any information required for validation, and then we add some variables. Now these variables will be able to be accessed in the if valid tag we'll add later on. First variable is first name, which is of type string and has a value passed from the first name underscore txt dot text attribute. We continue to go ahead and add the other validation requirements: last name, email, and password. Now let's add some validation for each of them. In first name, we've already put a validate tag, which is marked as required. We're also going to do that in last name. Finally, in email, we're going to put two validate tags. One is required and one is type equals email, which will force this to be an email value. And then finally, in the password, we're going to do some complex validation. We're going to add three different validate tags. The first one is required. The second one is minimum length. That will force the password to be a minimum length. And the third one will ensure that the two password boxes match. we're going to utilize the min equals to true to ensure that it's less than and greater to 6 as opposed to greater than 6. And then finally, that match we were talking about. The match value is what to compare the password value to, and label is what to display if it isn't valid in the label defined earlier. Let's go ahead and add all of that. Now we're going to add the if valid tag, and you can add the if valid and if not valid tags here, and the if valid will only execute if everything is validated. Let's add some code in the if valid, and we're going to first check to see if the email already exists in the database. And we can do that by utilizing the function existBOWHERE from the app object. We want to check to see if the user object model exists, where email equals, now we're going to access the information utilizing the variable name passed in the variables tag earlier. And then if it doesn't, we're going to pass the error message in the caption, email already exists, and then we're going to exit this function or event utilizing the exit sub. Let's go ahead and add that code. Now let's add some more code that's going to actually create the user's record. We've done this before, so we are going to simply pass the information using the variables. And then finally, the password has to be passed utilizing the password.value, because you can't pass the password directly into the password object. That's just the uniqueness. Let's go ahead and save that object and save the script. Now our registration form is complete. We do need to add that label that we've been referencing everywhere. And let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and save everything. We're going to add a title here, which I forgot to add, register form as HTML. Let's go ahead and save that. This will conclude the tutorial 17 part A. Continue on to 17 part B, and it will discuss some of the login and other features that we were talking about earlier.